Good morning. I am glad to be back at work. I had a little bit of an unexpected extra break, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Have you ever had anything unexpected happen? Does it throw you off? How do you deal with that? Well, I was out for Christmas break, and boy, was I really looking forward to it and having a great time. I decided that I knew that I wanted to see my mom down at the nursing home, but I know that they had called me and told me that there was a lot of COVID loose down at the nursing home. And so I'm like, okay, my mother and father-in-law are not in the greatest of health, and they're a little bit older, so I wanted to protect them because my wife interacts with them almost daily. And so I told the nursing home, I said, listen, I know there's COVID, and they said we're not restricting any visitation, especially at Christmas. But they arranged for me to meet my mom in a little dining room that no one eats in. It's like a little side room that hardly anyone ever goes in. And of course, I had to wear their protective masks and that kind of stuff. And so I did all that. And so I've had a nice, wonderful visit with my mom on Christmas Day. Well, the next day they called me and they said, just letting you know that your mother's now tested positive. And I'm like, oh boy. Well, I had taken every precaution I could. I came home and showered immediately and, did what I could to try to protect myself and my family. But I thought I had dodged it, and I was like, okay, maybe I got fortunate here. But toward the end of that week, I started to feel a little bit bad. And I'm like, well, my sinuses are just acting up, and I'm feeling a little bit icky. And but come to find out, right before I was due to go back to school on January 2nd, as you see, I still have a little bit of trouble. Right before I was going back to school on January 2nd, I tested that night, January 1st, and of course, I was positive. Well, I made arrangements to be out per our school policy, and I wasn't feeling really horrible, but I did feel bad. It was just like a bad sinus infection. But then it began to feel worse and worse and worse, and just the exhaustion set in and the constant headache, and then there was some coughing and stuff in my chest. The first day or two was no fun at all. Then I began to turn a corner. So this is the first day I am back at school. I got an extra week out because of COVID. And unfortunately, during that time, I also transmitted it to my wife, and she also had to deal with it. This was our second time dealing with it. Fortunately, this time, it was not as bad. I didn't lose taste or smell, but it really wears you out. And so I sit here today kind of exhausted. It's just the beginning of the day, and I'm already exhausted thinking, I want to see the kids. I want to get back going here, but I'm just worn out. I don't feel like doing a whole lot. So I'm going to try to muddle through the best I can. It makes me feel bad. It's like I'm not giving my kids 100%, but it's hard to continue to be out until you feel like it, because last time I just felt exhausted for about 6 months. I know, it was really strange. It's the strangest thing I've ever been through. So here I am. I'm going to do the best I can. But I tell you all that to ask you this. What do we do when something unexpected happens? What if it's bad? How do we deal with it? Well, as I sat there in the middle of the night, sleeping on the couch, trying to keep from giving it to my wife, I'm thinking, okay, I got through it last time, I'll get through it this time, and I'm going to do the best I can. But you know what? I didn't turn to myself or my own knowledge or the things that I knew to do. I mean, I knew to try to move and, try to stay a little bit active if I could. I knew to do those things and not just lie there. And I knew to take other medicines and things like that. And I knew that there are things that I could do to help myself, stay hydrated. But ultimately, I knew that the one I truly needed to rely upon was God. And so when the fear sets in the middle of the night and you're having a little bit of trouble breathing, it's like, okay, all right, what happens if I check out? You ever ask yourself that? What happens if I check out? What happens if I die? What happens if I pass? What happens if I have a heart attack or a stroke or I die from this? What happens? And have you ever tried to deal with that answer? It can be pretty scary. But as a Christian, it makes things a little bit easier when you're able to sit there and go, you know what? If I do, I know that Christ awaits for me. Christ awaits, and there's peace, and the sickness will be gone, and everything will be gone, and everything will be better. And it kind of takes the fear out of it a little bit when you're feeling pretty sick, or when you're feeling bad, or when you're facing something. Now, facing what I faced was a mild case, is nothing compared to what some people have to face. So we can complain or we can get busy living. We can allow our faith to take us through, and we can stay focused on the one that's truly there to save us. He'll be with us, even to the end of the world. No matter what happens to us, He'll never leave us or forsake us. And that ought to give us peace. Have a great day, guys. Be kind to each other. See you next time.